Okay, this is a sikha from Shabbos, Parshas Chayei Sarah, Mevarchem HaChodesh Kislev. It was the 27th of Mar Cheshvan, and it was, in other words, you had the Rebbe connected the idea that it's both the date when we bench the month of Kislev, and also he connected it with Chav Cheshvan. And he explains the uniqueness of Kislev in connection with Geulah and the uniqueness of the Rebbe Rashab's birthday in connection with Geulah. So though this Shabbos is not Chav Cheshvan, it's not Chav Zayin Cheshvan, it's only going to be Chav Beis Cheshvan, but in this week we are also dealing with Chav Cheshvan, and we are also dealing with what's going to be Shabbos Mevarchim, etc., etc. So let's see how the Rebbe is going to connect Kislev and Chav Cheshvan with the Geulah. So we're going to skip all the way to the bottom, last paragraph on the first page of your copies. The point and the conclusion of the month of Kislev is Chanukah. The Milas Neres Chanukah al Neres HaMikdash, the advantage of the Chanukah candles over the candles that were lit and kindled in the Beis HaMikdash is Sheneres Chanukah Dafke Ein B'Teim La'olam, that Hashem assured Aaron HaKohen that the candles of Chanukah will never cease. What does it mean the candles of Chanukah will never cease? Hainu, this means Sha'or the Neiros Chanukah, that the light of the candles of Chanukah. It's a very high light. That's why, because it's such a very high level, that's why it's unceasing. It's not just, okay, Hashem is going to make some type of miracle and that's it. The point is that it's such a high level that because of that it won't cease. Shloimer, we could say that this great level of the lights of Chanukah, that the candles of the Beis HaMikdash ceased after the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, and then further again after the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. But the fact that the candles of Chanukah do not cease, that's similar to Hashem, who is unceasing and unchanging as well. That candles of Chanukah is similar to the essence of Hashem's infinite being that's beyond the chain order of descent. In comparison to Hashem, also darkness will not darken before you. So because there can be no darkness before Hashem's very essence, therefore the Chanukah candles, which like mimic Hashem's essence, are also something that will never darken and never cease. And now he brings it into the connection of the Geulah. This is also the connection with the future redemption. As it's known, the 8 candles of Chanukah is similar to the stringed instrument, the kinnor that will be played in the Beis HaMikdash in the times of Moshiach. That's going to have Shel Shmoina Nimin. It will have 8 strands instead of what was in the Beis HaMikdash earlier, which only had 7 strands. What's the significance of the 8 candles and the 8 strands? Because the number 8 has to do with the Geulah. The revelation that will be in the future redemption. The revelation of Mashiach's times is such an unbounded revelation that it's not even possible that there could be any type of concealment in comparison to that level of revelation. And just like the Geulah is she'ein shayach she'yeh achrei hagolus, the redemption is such a type of redemption that is not possible to be after the Geulah. So therefore, just like the redemption of Mashiach's times is not like the redemption of Mitzrayim or the redemption of the first base after we return to the second Beis HaMikdash and so on. But our redemption is an final, complete, never again Geulah type of redemption, just like it was said about the Neres Chanukah, that Neres Chanukah Einam B'Teils La'olam, that they'll never cease, not like the candles of the Beis HaMikdash. The Inyan Zem, and this idea of the Geulah Asidam, that it's unceasing and unchanging because of its connection with Hashem's very essence. Like all matters that's going to take place when Mashiach comes, this is accomplished through our actions and service throughout the time of Geulah. The Alter Rebbe constantly quotes the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, chapter 37, that uses this term, that our actions in the time of Geulah are what bring about Mashiach's times. And the Rebbe emphasized the whole time that whenever we talk about a specific advantage and quality and thing that will take place during the times of Mashiach, he always links it and says, well, there must be something at present that we do that brings that about, that causes that to happen. So he says, second line from the bottom of the first column, through the study and the spreading of the inner part of the Torah, that there are no concealments and coverings on the inner part of the Torah. The Zohar says that in the Pnimius HaTorah, there's no questions, there's no contradictions and so on. In the revealed part of the Torah, like Gemara, there's questions and proofs and challenges and so on. That's not the inner part of the Torah, which means it doesn't have the idea of being concealed and covered that needs to be revealed from its state of concealment. Not like halacha, for example, that could be concealed until we reveal it from the klippas. Top of the second column, he continues, Shemaireres es pnimius haneshama, the inner part of the Torah awakens the inner part of the neshama. Va'ad lebchinas eson sheb'neshama, until the level that's called the eson, the rock hard, ancient core of the neshama. Eson b'lashon chazak v'kasha. Eson is from the words strong and hard. This is also the reason why the Alter Rebbe begins Tanya with the word Tanya, because Tanya is the same letters like the word Eson. When you're dealing with something that's rock hard, the Eson, that, and in our case, the Eson of the Neshama, all the winds and all the spirits of the world and all the energy of the world cannot move it from its place. How is that so? What did we say the nature of Hashem's very essence? Nothing can conceal it. The same thing, the inner part of Neshama, which is awakened through the inner part of the Torah, is like the Geulah, Shein Achar Golus. Nothing can change it. It's never going away. Through awakening and drawing down the essence of the light, that it's not possible to have any concealment in comparison to it. So therefore, it will cause by the Yid, when that part of the Neshama is awakened, that it won't be any type of concealment ever on it in front of any type of any types of winds that might disturb it. And then he says, Gimel v'zeh kesher l'shnei anyonim sheb'Shabbos zeh. That's the connection between the two topics that's in this Shabbos that we spoke about. Shabbos Mevorchim Kislev. It's both the Shabbos when we bench the month of Kislev, im Yom Hayoledes Admor Nishnaseiden, with the birthday of the Rebbe Rashab. Minyan of Ikrim Shadmor Nishnaseiden, from the primary concepts of the Rebbe Rashab is Sheyisad is Yeshivas Temchet Mimim. He established the Yeshivas Temchet Mimim. Shematarosahi, its goal is, like the Rebbe Rashab explained in his well-known talk about this concept, the Inyan, concerning the topic, whoever goes out to the war of the house of David. So he says, he likens those that studied in Temchet Mimim to those that are fighting for David HaMelech, meaning David HaMelech is the forerunner of Moshiach. That the students of the yeshiva are the soldiers of the house of David. Their job is to do battle with those that disgraced the heels of your anointed. In other words, that disturbed and prevent and go against the time of the heels of Mashiach, the end of Geulah. There's different ways of explaining what it means, Ikvis Mishachecha. And the continuation of that Sikha, he explains, the manner how these soldiers of the house of David, how did they project and how they operate this war. It's not with strength, not with might. What does that mean? Obviously, they're not going with guns and ammunition. What does it mean, chayil v'koyach, strength and might? It means not in the manner of rebuke and saying musar and ki im beruchi, rather with my spirit, limud va'afotzas pnimis haTorah, by studying and spreading the inner part of the Torah. One could go ahead and try to influence others and fight the wars of Moshiach by screaming at people and shouting at them and telling them how terrible they are in whatever they're doing and how Hashem is displeased. Or rather, you could use my spirit. What is the spirit? The spirit of the inner part of the Torah, we said, is connected with Hashem's essence of His light. That's the connection of these two topics. On the birthday of the one who founded the yeshiva, going to be this Thursday. It's going to be the birthday of the Rebbe Rashab Chav Cheshvan. There is a unique empowerment l'chol talmidav v'talmidei talmidav, to all of the Rebbe Rashab's students and the disciples and the students of his students. Lahoisiv, to increase, uba'ofen this gabrus b'mazoli goyver, in a way of full strength, like we say that on the day of the birthday, his mazel is in ascendancy, is in a full power, b'milui tafkidam, in fulfilling their job, lahoiris ha'olam, to illuminate the world. Vaydeis and Nasa ha'inyan the Kislev, through that occurs what the month of Kislev that we said. Kislev is embodied by the Yom Tov of Chanukah. Geulah she'ein achara Golus, a redemption that has no Golus following it. Like we said, Einam B'Teilim, that the Chanukah lights are never ceasing. It's because the Geulah is a Geulah that has no Golus following it. And then the Rebbe goes on. We're going to skip a little bit. The Rebbe says, connects two kapitlach in Tehillim. One kapitel was a kapitel that had to do with that day of the month, Kuf Chav Zayin. One had to do with the Yom Chav Zayin when the Rebbe was Farbrengen. Another has to do with the kapitel that they would start then to say for the Rebbe Rashab. We'll just skip over to the Rebbe's connection between those two kapitlach. Ois Hey. That's the third paragraph from the bottom of the first column. So he says, or actually let's go to the second paragraph from the bottom. It says, Hascholas Mizmer Kuf Chavavu, the beginning of the chapter 126 of Tehillim is, B'shuv Hashem Shivas Tzion, when Hashem will return the either returnees or captives of Zion, which is the idea that's going to be when Moshiach comes. There's going to be kibbutz golius. There's going to be the gathering of the exiles. And then there's Vascholas Mizmer Kuf Chav Zayinu, the beginning of chapter 127 of Tehillim, is Hashem Goimer Yivne Bayis. That it says over there, if Hashem doesn't build a home, so then for nothing are those that work on it. It's only Hashem has to build a home. Binyan Beis HaMikdash, the home it's referring to, is the building of the Beis HaMikdash. So now the Rebbe says a very interesting point. There is an order in Torah. The fact that Kuf Chavav comes before Kuf Chav Zayin, first the Tehillim talks about the ingathering of the exiles, then it speaks about the building of the Beis HaMikdash. There's a certain message about that. And soon we're going to discuss, is this going to be the actual order, or is it just a certain message, but it's not the actual order? We're going to talk about that. The Seder HaMizmorim, last line on the first column, the Seder HaMizmorim, the order of these kapitlach and Tehillim is Shagam Seder B'Torah, Hu Torah V'Yirah, top of the second column. Even the order in Torah is also a lesson and directive. So the fact that it first speaks about gathering in of the exiles, and then it speaks about building the Beis Hamikdash. Kibbutz Kol Yisrael, Kibbutz Goliath, Lefnei Binyan Beis Hamikdash, the gathering of all Jewish people, the gathering of the exiles before the building of the Beis Hamikdash. Now this actually took place, just like it took place in the Mishkan. The first occasion of fulfilling the mitzvah of building a Mikdash was with the Mishkan. What happened? First, we took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. Once we took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, we gathered them all into the wilderness, into the desert, and then we built a Mishkan. So in the times of going out of Mitzrayim, what was the order? Kibbutz Goliath, gathering all the Yidden together, and then you had the building of the Beis HaMikdash. You also had it in a similar vein with Beis HaMikdash Harishon, in the first Beis HaMikdash, which is the ultimate Beis HaMikdash until Moshiach comes. Beis HaMikdash HaMoleh Shaloi Chassid B'Klum. It was the full Beis HaMikdash. It wasn't lacking anything like in the second Beis HaMikdash where it was lacking. Now he's going to skip, because we know the second Beis HaMikdash didn't have the Aron, didn't have the Luchas, etc. It was lacking 5 things. So in the ultimate Beis HaMikdash, the first Beis HaMikdash, as of now, the full Beis HaMikdash, what happened? First the Yidden went into Eretz Yisrael. Then, X amount of years later, David HaMelech set up the plans, and Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash. So again, there was first the ingathering of the Yidden to Eretz Yisrael. Then there was the building of the Beis HaMikdash. Again, like the order of these two Kapitlach and Tillim. First it talks about Shivas Tzion, then it talks about Yivna Bayis. Now the Rebbe says this is also applicable in the future Beis HaMikdash. V'gam b'negel lel asid lavai, also concerning Mashiach's times. This order of these two Kapitlach and Tillim, first the ingathering the exiles, then the building of the Beis HaMikdash, is appropriate, corresponds to the opinion of the Medrash, she'ein Yerushalayim nivnis ad she'yiskansu hagolius, that Yerushalayim, which also includes the Beis HaMikdash, will not be built only after all the Golusim become gathered. So here in this Medrash we see that before you can have the Beis HaMikdash built, you need to have first the Kibbutz Goliath. So the Rebbe is going to challenge himself and say, hold on, if we look in the Rambam, the Rebbe is always focusing, if we want to know what's going to happen when Mashiach comes, let's look in the Rambam. If we open up the Rambam, we see that's not the order. The order is actually different. So the Rebbe says, though when it comes concerning lahalacha, there is seemingly an explicit halacha in the Rambam that says the opposite, as we'll soon read it, we'll quote it inside. First it says that that Moshiach will build the Beis HaMikdash in its proper location, and then he will collect all the scattered Yidden. So we'll soon explain, true, even the point that the Rebbe is going to say, even though practically the building will precede, according to the Rambam seemingly, the building will precede the collection of the exiles, but the message still applies that there's idea of building and then collecting the exiles and then the building, as we'll soon explain. But let's put that aside in a second. I want to just examine what the Rebbe just now said, that seemingly, you see the Lashon, he says, Yesh lechura psak din bar da Rambam. Seemingly, there is an explicit ruling of the Rambam. So the Rebbe says a very interesting thing in footnote 36. And he says, and the Rebbe applies this concerning different things that we see about the Rambam in the coming of Mashiach and when he talks about Mashiach's times. And a lot of things that he talks about, the Rebbe says, is just the baseline. what has to be with according to halacha. But if we are especially meritorious, things may not be in exactly the way that the Rambam says it. So the Rambam says what at least has to take place. What at least has to take place is first the building of the Beis HaMikdash, and then there will be kibbutz galuyos. But if we're going to be having a special schus, so then we're going to have an amazing type of Beis HaMikdash that's built only after all the Yidden are gathered in. But again, the Rebbe doesn't rule on it, but he just says that we cannot derive from the Rambam absolutely that the Rambam is going to say only this is the way that has to be, and it can't be the opposite way. Okay, getting back to what the Rebbe is talking about, let's skip the parentheses to the next page. What does the Rambam actually say? That Moshiach will have built the Beis HaMikdash in its place, in its location, and afterwards, v'kibitz nitchei Yisrael, he will collect the scattered Yidden, Afal Pikain still in all, concerning our actions and our service now, spiritually. Through that, all the matters occur. In the physical, we have to derive a lesson and a directive from both views and both opinions. So what the Rebbe is saying over here is that let us even accept that the Rambam view is the final halacha and there's no other option. And according to the Rambam, when Moshiach comes, it's first going to be the building of the Beis HaMikdash, and then there's going to be the ingathering of the exiles. Still in all, there is a spiritual message. There is a spiritual action and service which reflect the order of the opinion in Tehillim, or the opinion in the Medrash, which is not according to the Rambam, that first there'll be the ingathering of the exile, and then there will be the building of the Beis HaMikdash. And this is something that the Rebbe often says, that even when there is a dispute between two opinions, we always say, the Chazal say, Elu ve'elu divra l'kim chayim. Both these and those are the words of the living God. What does that mean? We just follow according to this one opinion. Doesn't that mean that the other opinion is wrong? Chas v'sholom. They're both part of Torah. Like the Rebbe says, we're not allowed to study Torah before we make a bracha birchsa Torah in the morning. So even if we are to study the other opinion, which we rule against, we still have to make the bracha birchsa Torah. It's part of Torah. How come? Why is that? Because even when there's a divergent opinion, the reason why we paskin la halacha according to one opinion, not according to the other opinion, if both of them are the words of the living God, it's because we're limited in action, in halacha, in doing one way and not another way. Usually we cannot do both ways. Like the case with Moshiach. It's either going to be this way or it's going to be that way. And the Rambam Paskins is going to be this way, based on what we're assuming right now, what the Rambam holds. So when it comes in this world, in the physical world of action, we're limited in one way. But when it comes in the spiritual realms, what they represent two types of avodah that can both be correct and are both something that we can apply. Just to give an example that the Rebbe often brings, and he says that there is actually a dispute in Chazal. What does a shofar have to look like? Does it have to look curved like our shofar is, or does it have to come from a type of horn that's straight? And Chassidus explains that the straight horn indicates a certain type of avodah, and the curved horn indicates a different type of avodah, and often it will talk about the avodah of the straight horn. The halacha is like we do now, that we have a curved shofar, not a straight shofar. Yet the lessons, the inner meaning, the spiritual component of it applies now as well. So that's the Rebbe saying over here. Even though there seems to be two opinions, what will be first? The ingathering of the exiles, then the Beis HaMikdash being built, or the Beis HaMikdash being built, and then the ingathering. Both of them have lessons for us in our avodas Hashem, and both of them have to do with our actions and service that we have to do now in the time of Geulah in preparation of coming of Moshiach. So the Rebbe is going to explain what this means. Vabir b'zeh, second paragraph on the page. In the Beis HaMikdash, the idea of the Beis HaMikdash is Shagam Dvarim Hagashim, also the physical items. Skip the parentheses. Nasim Mikdash Lo Yisbarach can also be a sanctuary for Hashem, just like the physical Beis HaMikdash and just like the physical Mishkan. We built a home for Hashem from physical items in this world. V'zeu tamadeya. This is the reason of the opinion. She'ein Yerushalayim nivnis achis kansu agolius. Why does the Beis HaMikdash not going to be built until all the Goliaths, all the exiles will gather? First, initially, there will be all Yidden will leave Golus. Only afterwards will be a much higher idea. Also the physical items will become a home for the Eibusher, just like the building of the Beis HaMikdash. You're taking the physical items and you're building a Beis HaMikdash. So now, how does this reflect in our avodah? So too, it's in our actions, in our service now. According to his opinion, it's called the beginning of our avodah is to gather and collect all the sparks of our light of our soul, that were scattered in many places and very distant places, one from another, like the Mittler Rebbe says that there's what's called a pizur hanefesh, when we invest our mind and heart in things that are ungodly, so then we're like spreading out and making a golus of all of our parts of our soul. So first we need to collect them from everywhere they were scattered. That's our own internal kibbutz golias, gathering of the exiles. Only after we've dealt with our own internal scattering, then then he has the capability to effect the ultimate perfection of the refinement and purification in the world that's outside of him, which is the building of Beis HaMikdash. That he takes physical objects and makes it a holy place. As long as that person was not yet totally refined, my soul is still scattered all over. According to this opinion, according to this view, that first there's kibbutz goliath, then there's the building of the Beis HaMikdash. So we cannot come to the building of the Beis HaMikdash where we need to refine the world around us while our own soul is scattered. That is one lesson, that we need to focus on our internal before we could focus on the external. And then he says, the Rebbe brings in the footnote, actually, from we find in L'Kutei Torah, that a person may not sit down to a meal before he davens. Why? Because the idea of eating is refining the sparks. How can he refine the sparks that are in the food if he himself has not yet elevated himself, if he himself is still connected with things down here below? Let's go on to the last paragraph in the first column. What is a directive and lesson from the opinion that the building of the Beis HaMikdash precedes the gathering of the exiles? Though ordinarily the order is, first beautify yourself. First we have to take care of ourselves, then we could adorn and beautify others. It could be likened to what they say on the planes. First put your own mask on when the oxygen masks fall down. Then put on the masks on anybody that's next to you, children or whatever. Afal Pikein, despite that first we have to take care of our own internal issues and then deal with the world at large. Yesh lefamim matzav, sometimes there's a matzav miyuchat, top of the second column, there's a unique state and situation. Sha'avoida the binyan beis hamikdash ba lefnei avoida the kibbutz golius. The avoida of building the beis hamikdash, in other words, elevating the world around us, comes before gathering the exiles, gathering in my own self, elevating myself. How can I tell when by divine providence something lands in his lap that it needs to be taken care of? That itself is the proof that now is not the time to say, oh, I can't deal with this, I'm still imperfect inside. Though he himself was not yet refined, though himself was not yet elevated. And actually doing it this way, doing it in first the order of building the Beis HaMikdash first, then mamsheches nesinas koyach noisav avodas imatzmei. Then it draws down an additional empowerment in his avodah by his own self. So in other words, not only does him going out of order and dealing with the world around him not impede his working upon himself, but actually the building of the Beis HaMikdash, which means working on the world outside, actually empowers him and gives him more strength and capability to be able to transform himself, to make his own kibbutz golius, to gather in his own lost sparks. Let's skip the parentheses. Oizvav, if we could add, just like concerning the topics of what will come first, the building of the Beis HaMikdash or the gathering of the exiles. If you take it in when we're talking about the simple sense, not the internal one, but the literal building of the Beis HaMikdash. Pashtus Loshna Rambam Hi Shebinyan Beis HaMikdash Kohen Kibbutz Golius. Like we said, the literal, simple understanding of the expression of the Rambam is that the building of the Beis HaMikdash precedes the gathering of the exiles. So just like in the simple ruling of the Rambam, Moshiach will first build the Beis HaMikdash, then gather in the exiles. The same thing, the first glance, like the halachic first approach in my internal building of the Beis HaMikdash, in my internal gathering of the exiles, we know what comes first. So too, it's concerning our actions and our service in this generation. The simple lesson and directive through my father-in-law, and also the Frierdiker Rebbe, the leader of our generation, the avoida, the binyan, Beis HaMikdash, kaidemes, la avoida, the kibbutz golius. The avoida of building the Beis HaMikdash, in other words, taking care of the world around us, precedes the avoida of gathering my own lost sparks, dealing with my own spiritual level. This means to say, in this generation, acting in this type of manner, to affect and influence the world without waiting until he totally refines himself. This is the way the majority of people need to work. First, deal with the world. This is the order for the majority of people. Milvad lemiut, except for a few, or rakli yichudis gula, or only special people, shador shemem hashlemus b'shlemus, from them we demanded them to be completely perfect. This directive, we see this in actuality. My father-in-law sent shluchim to faraway places. Rechaykim gam beruchnius, places that were distant also spiritually. He didn't wait for these people that he sent to be completely refined and worked on their own internal self. And this way of acting, first dealing with the world around you, it wasn't an exception that the Rebbe sent, the Frierdiker Rebbe sent some people, and so to the Rebbe, just some people that were imperfect, he sent them out. No, this was the order, this is the manner how he did it for the multitudes, that he just sent people out whether or not they were ready. That being said, that doesn't release us of the obligation of the other opinion, that we have to know, that we have to work on ourselves. Became move on. The kibbutz Geulah still and all it's understood, and everyone needs to take a directive also from the opinion that gathering the exiles precedes the building of Beis Hamikdash, because the entire Torah is everlasting. And since we have that kapitel in Tillam, and since we have that opinion in Medrash that says first there is the gathering of the exiles, then there is the building of the Beis Hamikdash, so we need to have that view as well to incorporate in our lives. How do we do so? The explanation this is even when we're working with another, which is corresponding to the idea of building the Beis Hamikdash, taking things that are outside and building them up, there are these two components. Aleph, the effort to help him as necessary. Shekol koiches nafshe yimurkozim yachad shekulam yiu chadurim b'toyra mitzvahs kibbutz golius. We need to work on someone else to make sure that all the powers of his soul should be concentrated together through the fact that they will all be permeated with Torah mitzvahs. That's the idea of gathering the exiles. So it's not our exiles we're working on now, we're working on his. So it's Binyan Beis Hamikdash plus Kibbutz Golius. Then there's another thing. By extension, the effect and influence that comes about through this in the entire world, through the fact that it was added another Yid, one more Yid, that became close to Torah mitzvahs. We make closer, we speed up the Geulah, the Chol Olam Kulei of the entire world, Binyan Beis Hamikdash, the building of the Beis Hamikdash. So when I make Kibbutz Golias by another Yid, I am building the Beis Hamikdash of the Geulah Siddha. So here, in this regard, we see Kibbutz Golias, the gathering of the sparks, gathering of the exiles, how it precedes the building of the Beis Hamikdash. Internally, I can't wait with reaching out before I've perfected myself. But part of my reaching out is making by others that all their powers of their souls should be focused on Torah mitzvahs, and that will lead to the building of the Beis Hamikdash to the Geulah. He says, the kibbutz Golias Beis Hamikdash. That's the lesson that we derive from the opinion that the gathering of the exiles precedes the building of the Beis Hamikdash. The intention of the one who sent the leader of our generation and sending the shluchim to different places, this sikh was said around the time of the Kinus HaShluchim. We could say it is Shashliach Yisrakes Lifoil, that the shliach should gather and focus to effect Lazar la'anshe amakim shalsham nishlach, to assist the people of the location, the place, the city that he was sent over there. Hein la'chenu b'nei Yisrael and sham, both to Jewish people that are found over there. Shiur v'yashpia lahem ayda afotas hayadus v'mayonis, that he should illuminate and influence the Yidden that are there through the spreading of Yiddishkeit and spreading the wellsprings, the hein b'nei noyach, and also to influence non-Jews lahavdil ayda afotas sheva mitzvahs dedahu, by spreading out and by giving them the awareness of their 7 mitzvahs of the Bnei Noach. Though the shliach has to know the ruling of the Torah and the Torah's, what the Torah lets us know, Torah's chayim, the Torah of life, about the effect that occurs in this throughout the entire world. Chayei and Geulah, and through that we make the Geulah closer. So a shliach has to be aware of that as well. He's not just there to do X, Y, and Z. Mekarev Yidden to Yiddishkeit, let Goyim know about the Sheva Mitzvah Noach. He also has to know what he is accomplishing through it, that he's bringing the Geulah closer. And not just does he have to know it for its own sake, but by being aware that through doing this, he is bringing the Geulah closer. This adds more vitality and energy in his avodah, because he realizes every Yid, and even lahavdil every goy that he tells him about Sheva Mitzvah Noach, this is bringing Moshiach closer. So it energizes him. Along with that idea, all of Ladas, he needs to know, top of the last column, the idea of bringing the Geulah closer is an outcome, a result of the avodah that the sender placed upon him. To focus, to illuminate the place that to which he was sent with the light of Torah mitzvahs. So he continues, and should be the will that the gathering of the shluchim, let them live long, etc. That a man will help his fellow and they will strengthen each other. It will add power and might in each one of them in fulfilling their mission. Even more so in such a way that he increases and adds in light. And specifically, each one of them was given special unique powers from the one who sent them, the shluchim shalom mamish, because the representative of a person, halacha says, is like the person mamish. What's demanded from them is to use that empowerment, to fully use it the way it should be used. Each one should illuminate the place that he was sent over there through spreading Yiddishkeit, Torah mitzvahs, not just the spreading of Yiddishkeit and Torah mitzvahs, but specifically through spreading the wellsprings. On all the increase in these activities brings closer and speeds up the Geulah, which is Mizmor Kuf Chavav, and the revelation of the third base of Migdash, which is in Kapitel 127, by his nitzchi, an everlasting home, Migdash Adonai Kohen Yudecha, the Migdash of Hashem that your own hands prepared. Ubetoichen, a Mizmor Da'ata, the Baal Yom Haledes, and in the content of the Mizmor of the now that we're still saying, of the one whose Yom Haledes was the Rebbe Shabbat that year, Shetzorach Liis, Shehavai Yivna Bayis, it has to be that Hashem should build a home, Havai Yishmeir, and Hashem should guard the city, Shekain Li'Yedidoi, who Melech Moshiach, his friend of the Eibishter, is considered the King Moshiach. Yitin Lai Hakela Yisbarach Hu, Hashem will give his friend Habayis Vayiru B'Tach Sashlemus. He's referring to a medrash about it. I'm not going to go over here to explanation of the Radak. He's going to give over the city and the house in the ultimate way. Speedily in our days mamish in our times.